Proof that gun violence poses a public health crisis in this country. This new survey data really paints a bleak picture. And it's important to note that this didn't ask respondents, what do you think of gun control? It asked, how are guns impacting your lives now? Let's take a look at some of the data here and some of the overwhelming findings. You can see that over half of those who were surveyed said that they have been impacted by a gun-related incident.
Public health crisis. Just notice that subtle word right at the beginning.
Yeah, Don, I mean, as if we needed further proof that gun violence poses a public health crisis in this country.
What did they do the last time something posed a public health crisis? What extraordinary measures did they implement then? That term is not an accident. And that's not to undermine the seriousness of gun-related violence. Let's just
gun-related incident, either themselves personally or a family member. 1 in 5, 20% of Americans surveyed had a family member who was killed by a gun.
I'm going to pause it there. And I'm going to get ahead of the curve on this. This statistic is bogus. The statistic makes no sense. And at a later date, it's going to come out that the methodology was questionable, it's going to come out that if this number is accurate, it is meaninglessly accurate. And we're going to get into a few reasons as to how this number can be accurate but meaningless, but probably more likely than not, totally, wildly inaccurate. Hold on. Keep going here.
They're by homicide, suicide, or accidentally. And that is, as we get into the mindset of people in this country, 84% have actually taken at least one precaution to protect themselves or their families from gun violence. And as we look at
how did they, I'm just curious, actually, what precaution did they take to protect themselves from gun violence? Did they get a gun? Did they get something for home self-defense?
Communities of color and its impact. It's even more unsettling as you look at the survey data. 31% of Black adults and 22% of Hispanic adults have actually witnessed someone being shot. 34% of Black adults have had family members killed by a gun. That number, Don, is twice.
Killed by a gun. It's like the car drove itself into the crowd. We can stop there with that study. We'll get into this in a second. Killed by a gun. It's an amazing thing. It's like it was an autonomous thingy thing, like killed by a car. That statistic is going to come back to be wildly, wildly misleading, even if accurate, because it can be accurate and misleading. Now, I had 2 questions from that poll, and it's not like I didn't go to the study to try to find. I'm not sure if I found the accurate study, the correct study. Yeah, that's it right here. Hold on. I want to bring it up. I don't want to just see it myself. I went to try to find what I think is the study. And I think this is the study. And I went to try to find the definition of the term family member. And it's not to be the lawyer and to wordsmith. How do they define family member? When someone says, yeah, I've had a family member that was killed by a gun, what does that mean? How far extended family are they including as family members? First cousins, second cousins, third cousins, great grandfather, grandfather? Like what do they include in the term family member? And then the second question I had is, does this include war? And that sounds maybe, again, like wordsmithing. How meaningful can that be? Well, we don't know the time frame, the temporal time frame in terms of who they're asking if they've known a family member that has been killed by a gun. A lifetime? If you ask an 80-year-old war veteran, and I'm not saying this to be sarcastic or glib, yeah, he'll know a lot of people who got killed by guns. If it excludes war, and let's just operate on the basis that they have included suicide. Did they say they included, or I think they included suicide in that. And accidents, that's right. They included suicide and accidents, which broadens it wildly. Extended family, what is included and what is defined as family? What's the time frame? Does it include war? Because you realize, like, here, so by the way, I went to the study, key findings, okay, and I went into top-line methodology, and I can't find a definition for family in this, family member, nor can I find the temporal time frame that was asked, nor I don't know that I've seen where the study was conducted. We know that they're basing all of this on 1,271 respondents, which is going to play dovetail into another subject matter for tonight. You guys go scour this, because I tried to look and I can't find it. And let's just take like the thought experiment, the hypothetical thought experiment, Everybody on earth is related to this one person. This one person gets killed by a gun. 100% of the people say, I know someone who's been killed by a gun, even though the person that was killed by a gun, one person. Now, that is, you could say, it's conceptually possible. Everyone polled is related to the one family member who was killed by a gun. They'll all say 100% of them know somebody who's killed by a gun, and yet only one person was killed by a gun. It's an absurd reductio, but it illustrates the problem. Not only if the term family member is a little bit broadly defined, not only would it potentially inaccurately broaden the results of the question, you could actually have doubling over of the questions where you can have overlapping extended family members referencing the same person. And so you'll have two people answering yes to the same question that references one person. Okay. Stop rationalizing CNN sock puppets. It's on. Hey, you have to listen to it. You have to hear it. You have to try to understand it. Because I'll say one thing. Gun violence is definitely a problem. I don't think that's radical to say. To say that guns are going around killing people, that's where we start losing track of what the problem actually is. And when you get into the breaking down of the gun violence, like the most misleading statistic is people say 47,000 people get killed by guns every year in America. True, but over 50% of gun-related deaths are suicide. Suicide. People want to conflate those two issues. Tackle suicide as why that's such a big issue in the United States. So that's one way of conflating the number. When you break it down, I think it was like 20,000, close to 21,000 people were killed in gun-related, excluding suicide deaths in 2022, give or take. I think that's what it was last. That's a big number. But then let's just break it down more, because what makes this issue come to the fore over and over again are school shootings, AR type things. I happen to know the statistics. I don't know them meticulously offhand, but break it down. The vast majority of those gun-related deaths are committed with unlawfully procured firearms, not rifles, but small arms, in inner cities and impoverished areas. And the argument is just give up bump stocks and we'll stop. Just give up ARs and we'll stop. The study that comes out now, this study goes after exactly the opposite of what the standard arguing point is. We'll be happy, with. If we stop here, we'll be happy. I don't believe that statistic for 1 second. I believe the methodology used is wildly susceptible of inflating the numbers. It's an interesting thing. It's making the news now. So it's all over the place. It's the headlines everywhere, and they're gonna, instead of tackling the real issues and ignoring the fact that firearms have been used for many purposes of self-defense, and it's a God-given right, self-defense. And if you think the Canadian schnook is exaggerating, go up to Canada. You cannot own a firearm for the purposes of self-defense, even home defense. Oh, not just that you can't even own a firearm. You can't own pepper spray for the purposes of self-defense. You can't own a taser. You can't own a stun gun. In fact, if you go to get a gun, even if it's a long arm, you take the 2-day course and you allude to the fact that you're getting a hunting rifle for self-defense purposes, you'll get rejected. Self-defense in Canada has been, you can't own nunchucks for self-defense. So you think this is now coming from a person who's very reasonable, very sensible, and in the ordinary run of things would say, yeah, nobody should have guns, not even the government. I'm coming from a place now where I see exactly what happens. And our gun-related violence in Canada, it's definitely lower than the States. There are other economic factors that might account for that. But go to Toronto, go to Vancouver, you go to certain cities and certain parts of towns, gun violence is a real thing there. And all committed with black market guns. I say all, virtually all in Canada. And yet they've gone after the perfectly legal firearms of law-abiding citizens who get the license, do the course. They're the ones who can't own the firearm, but the people who commit the crimes don't exactly go follow the laws in terms of procuring their firearms. 1 in 5 people have a family member that has been killed by a firearm. All right. If that goes a lifetime, dog, you're annoying me. Get out of here. Dog keeps kicking me with his claws. What's the expression? There's 3 types of lies: lies, damn lies, and statistics. Figures lie and liars figure. I don't know. You know what it is. this is now, they come out with this study in the wake of a number of bad incidents. They don't want to. Nobody wants to talk about the mental health crisis, because in Canada we're seeing, as the firearm laws in Canada get stricter and stricter, the gun violence in Canada gets worse and worse. I can tell, in where I lived in Lower Westmount, there in the last year there were 2 or 3 shootings. The stricter the gun laws get in Canada, the worse the gun violence gets, and then you need more laws. It's an amazing thing. So, how's everybody doing? What happened today? My sister-in-law has come to visit and has now gone. So we get one room in the house back. I went back to Lokahatchee Wildlife Reserve, the Arthur Marshall Lokahatchee Wildlife Reserve. Hold on. Actually, I got to show you this. And I went back. The Happy Gilmore alligator was still there. I didn't get as close as the photograph looks. But I got a good picture. Look at this thing. Look at this. He got my hand, but I got that bastard's eye. Look at that. I'm calling him the Happy Gilmore alligator. He hangs by the docks, I presume because he gets fed fish, or eats the dead fish that people throw back into the water. And his one eye was open. Look at the flipping teeth. It wasn't that big. It was shorter than me. If you can believe it, there are some alligators that are shorter than Viva. But it was sitting there. I got a nice zoomed in picture of its face. I'm very much respecting the distance laws, and they said a fed gator is a dead gator, and I will not be responsible for causing the death of an alligator. So yeah, there's that statistic. And we're going to find out, like, after it's made the headlines and after it's been milked for all of the political value that it can be milked for, it's going to just drop off. And then by the time we find out the number was wildly inflated due to inaccurate methodology, doesn't matter. The impact has been there. Now, speaking of polls, okay, sorry. Before we get into this one, we are live on Rumble. Oh, geez, I didn't put the thumbnail in. Darn it. That's because I didn't get the thumbnail yet. We're live on Rumble, which is good. And we are live on Locals, which is good. And we're live on YouTube. We're going to end on YouTube in a few minutes, as we always do, go exclusive over to Rumble and Locals, and then over to Locals for the after party where I answer more questions, et cetera, et cetera. What happened with the GoPro contest? Submissions are in. I have a folder with all of my submissions. If I win, you will know. If I lose, you're going to know, because I'm going to make a montage with all of my submissions. They publish the winning video, or they publish the video, which is the compilation of all the winners, April 26th. So I will be watching it then. And yeah, fried alligator with lemon is awesome. I've eaten alligator. It's actually delicious. Okay, so we're going to go over to Rumble after this. Sooner than later, we're going to talk Tiffany Dover. We have the conclusion to the conspiracy theory. At the very least, the conclusion now, as per Brandy, I know her last name has 2 Zs in it. The conclusion now is somewhat better than the conclusion of that 5-part miniseries podcast, which was inconclusive, and we'll get there. Tiffany Dover, Justin Trudeau, he's in trouble. There were some other things. What did I say in the title here? Trouble, little Trudeau. Tiffany Dover. There's more stuff. We'll have fun. But speaking of bogus statistics and how you take statistics to lie, and I'm calling out Fox News on this, because you see these. First of all, when Fox News is also referencing, it was either an ABC poll or a CBS. It's one of the other 3-letter fake news agencies. I read this article. Not to say that Fox has not been traditionally anti-Trump. They've had their issues. Let's see. I think they've called Arizona already. I see an article in Fox News, and I'm like, oh, okay, interesting. Interesting that it's in Fox News, and I read the headline. I'm like, oh, look at that. The pressure that is being exerted through malicious prosecution, politicized prosecution, it's having an impact. Even Fox News now is saying nearly half of Americans think Trump should suspend 2024 campaign after indictment poll. About 47% of the respondents believe the indictment is politically motivated. So you read something like this, And it just makes no sense. Half of Americans think Trump should suspend his campaign. Okay, I want to hear more. Please tell me more, Fox. It's coming from Fox. They're not typically anti-Trump. Former President Trump ramps up his 2024 presidential campaign. New polling reveals that while more than half of Americans believe he intentionally did something illegal after his indictment, many believe it was politically motivated. Trump was arraigned Tuesday, yada, yada, yada. And this is where I get very suspicious. A recent ABC News Ipsos poll found that 48% of Americans think Trump should suspend his presidential campaign following indictment, up 5 points from last week. Now, I had my run-ins with Ipsos during the Canadian elections when I ran, and I questioned some of their results as relates to where Canadian political parties were polling. 53%. All right, I want to see this. How many people were polled? Typically, it says respondents, and then it says they tell you how many respond. 52%. Yada, yada, yada. Respondents, nearly half. So it doesn't tell you how many respondents were there. Chat, Rumble, YouTube, locals. How many, for those of you who don't know, don't spoil it. How many people do you think were polled? How many people were polled in this poll that allowed news agencies to run with the headline, half of Americans think Trump should suspend his campaign? How many? 0 to 1,000, 1,000 to 10,000, 10,000 to 100,000. Maple Syrup says 10. I can't bring up the chats. I can't highlight the comments in Rumble, which drives me nuts. 1,050 says Timmy Ninja. Less than 500 says Deborah for USA. 1,050. Okay, Timber Ninja, I think you might have cheated. I think it was 1,047. Where was it? Oh, come on, you nincompoop. No, I have the article here. Hold on 1 second. Here, no. It was 1,047, give or take. That's annoying. It was 1,047. Give or take, it was 1,000. They poll 1,000 people. I don't know what age they are, what time of day. They poll 1,000 people so they can then derive these massive conclusions to try to influence public opinion. These polls are not intended to reflect public opinion. They're intended to steer public opinion. And Fox is no better than anyone else. And it's outrageous. I'm just going to see if I cannot find the, if I can't find this. It's really, really annoying. I doesn't matter. Oh, 1,047. And they run with the headline. They tell you what to think. Nobody knows how it works. They think, oh, well, geez, if it's that many people, maybe I should be on this. Maybe I should be on board with this as well. It's amazing. It was only 500-ish. No, then hold on. It is only 5. Okay, hold on, people. Now I'm thinking if I confused it for the polls in Canada, which at the very least in Canada are like 1,000 and change. No, you're right. Okay, hold on 1 second. Oh, okay, so that's Justin Trudeau. That's women's soccer. We're going to get to that. That's Tiffany Dover. That's the flu. This is from last night. Tiffany Dover again. Oh, yeah, here we go. Okay. Oh, that's okay. 566 people. I'm an idiot. I gave them too much credit. It was 566 respondents. Here we go. This ABC News Ipsos poll was conducted April 6 to April 7, 2023 by Ipsos using the probability-based knowledge panel. Registered. This poll is based on a nationally representative probability sample, 566, at least in Canada. When they did the election polls, they did it a little over 1,000 people for a country of 36 million. 566 for a country of 350 million. Believe the stats, believe the news. This is what you should think. Now people should start changing their minds, stop supporting Trump, start supporting DeSantis, because Trump is such a wild, long shot. Nobody wants him so much that they have to shape public opinion through these bogus polls. 566. Okay, we're gonna do one more on YouTube before going over to Rumble. It was a small one that I didn't specifically mention that we were going to talk about. What's her name? Rapinoe? Rapinoe has taken to Twitter to promote her support for LGBTQ plus stuff. And she's come out and says, look, the issue is not male athletes competing in female sports. We should be worrying about other stuff here. Let me bring this one up here. Rapinoe says, or her name is Megan Rapinoe, or maybe it's Rapinoe. Today, politicians in DC are claiming to protect women's, she puts it in quotes, quote, protect women's sports, end quote, by pushing a trans and intersex sports ban. I'll tell you this, the intersex, which I think is the medical anomaly of someone who has external genitalia that does not match chromosomes, I think there's only been one case of it that I know about, and it was the track athlete. No, the intersex is simply not an issue. The only issue for political purposes, for legislative purposes, are what we're calling trans, which is biological males who want to compete in female categories. And the reason why that's an issue is because there's no issue about women who transition seeking to compete in men's sports and anybody saying they have any form of an unfair biological advantage. It doesn't seem to be happening that way. The intersex, nobody is talking about because it's not an issue, because it's an actual anomaly of a medical condition that is infinitesimally rare. The trans is not a medical condition. It is definitely recognized in the DSM-5 as a psychological condition. And it is one that, by its biology, by its nature, trust the science, follow the science crowd, is one that causes concern for biological advantages of males who, whatever they do later on in life, have already gone through puberty, have certain biological advantages over women competing in women's sports. Megan Rapinoe says, today politicians in DC are claiming to, quote, protect women's rights by pushing a trans and intersex sports ban. Call your congressional rep today to say women's sports need protection from unequal pay, sexual abuse, and lack of resources, not from trans kids. Do we all know what a non sequitur is? Non sequitur? A non sequitur, at the risk of being accused of misunderstanding yet another argument fallacy, a non sequitur is two statements that are not logically connected whatsoever, or a conclusion that does not follow from the premise. Today politicians are talking about protecting trans women in sports. You need to call up and talk about unequal pay and sexual abuse. And by the way, sexual abuse, although that I know of, it hasn't happened in a physical sense, but some people might be inclined to consider being involuntarily exposed to male genitalia a form of sexual abuse. Like it's an amazing thing. This actually might have to be one of my follow-up tweets to Megan Rapinoe. When Riley Gaines testifies that she was forced to change in a locker room with male genitalia, and this intact 6'2" male is showing his genitalia to women who did not want to see it, who did not want to be in that situation. Some people, in the ordinary run of things, if I run into a girl's locker room and expose my genitalia, some people would consider that sexual abuse. They would certainly call it some form of sexual misconduct. So there's an interesting overlap as to the possibility of, if you want to protect women's sports from sexual abuse, ask Riley Gaines what she thinks of Megan. But she says, the pretext of the trans and intersex sports ban about protecting women's sports, if you want to protect women's sports, go talk about unequal pay, which has been thoroughly debunked, Megan. Go watch Nate the lawyer, his breakdown of it. Thoroughly debunked. Thoroughly. It's at least in women's soccer, thoroughly debunked. And as far as the 70%, 70 cents on the dollar wage gap goes in the ordinary things, that's been debunked as well. Sorry to spoil the party. Sexual abuse? Lack of resources, not from trans kids. Well, not from trans kids? It's such an amazing thing. Where you say, other than being a non sequitur, the statement is detached from reality. People don't know this, or they hear it and they think it's a joke. The women's national team, on which Megan Rapinoe was a member, lost to the men's, or I should say the boys. I mean, I don't know, under 15. They lost to, FC Dallas under 15 boys. They lost 5-2. Yeah, but no, but there's no biological difference between men and women. The best women's soccer team, or at least the highest caliber women's soccer team, lost 5-2 to the under 15, and I think they lost 8-0 to the under 18. And don't take my word for it. Are we looking at the same thing? We are. Don't take my word for it. FC Dallas under 15 boys squad beat the U.S. women's national team in a scrimmage, but they weren't taking it seriously. The women's team was using it as a warm up. They weren't playing hard, and they was okay. I can't. They weren't playing hard. Megan Rapinoe, who has now made her fame, made her fortune by having the privilege to fight and play on an equal playing field, pun intended, as a result of the sacrifice that women before her made in the name of women's rights. Now she gets to climb to the next level and pull the ladder out for everyone else trying to compete. It's an amazing thing. Someone used that analogy. It wasn't even mine, and I like it. She gets to go up the Heideggerian ladder. That was not there. That's my analogy now. She gets to go up to the next level and pull the ladder out for all the other women who she is now promoting an unequal playing field for success. It's the ultimate of hypocrisy. It's like Arnold Schwarzenegger only said "fuck your freedoms" after he had benefited his entire life from American freedom. Howard Stern, who was it that said it? No, I'm sorry. Schwarzenegger said "screw your freedoms." It was Howard Stern who said "fuck your freedoms." Only the people, the wealthiest, most privileged elite in America, after they've made their wealth, their fame, their fortune off the freedoms that allowed them to do that, only then do they then say, "Screw your freedoms." Let me pull up that ladder. Hey, Riley, sorry, you're going to have to compete against biological males. And I'm doing it. And I want the virtue signaling points. You see, at Megan's stage of professional life right now, money's not the issue. Competition is no longer the issue. She competed on a level playing field. She made all her money. Now her currency is social media virtue signaling points. The currency changes as you get older. And the currency now that Megan is fighting for, she doesn't need to worry about competition, and she doesn't need to worry about money. In fact, this will probably guarantee her even more money. She can go be a spokesperson, senior sports commentator for CNN. Wow, it's funny. I was hearing a ringing in my ears, and as I finished that sentence, the ringing went away. I think I should lower my blood pressure. In the name of fairness, Megan is looking out for the disfortunate now. Those biological males who now want to compete against biological females, and she's had her life. She's had her good run. And she doesn't give a sweet bugger all if she screws it up for the next generation of women. All right, people, let's do it. Mosey on over to the Rumbles. I was told I went live at a bad time because Steve Bannon's War Room is on. But there is no good time to go live anymore. And from my end, I just got to go live whenever I get the chance. So, oh, God, I hear someone playing on a skateboard in the house. Hold on. I'm putting the Rumble link in locals. That's not what I meant to do. Okay, everybody. Here's the Rumble link. Let me see if I've missed anything in YouTube before we go over. Oh, yeah. I'm just looking at the YouTube finally monetized my Riley Gaines incident 2 days later after, it's obviously no longer in the news. Nobody really cares about it. And they've certainly been able to curb the discussion about what occurred at San Francisco State University, which is an atrocity, an absolute atrocity. Okay. Dushkin, check his YouTube channel. No, this over here. All right. So let's mosey on over to Rumble. By the way, tomorrow's going to be a big day in terms of stuff. I'm going to be live with Nina Infinity. I'm screwing up the channel. At 5 o'clock, and at 7 o'clock we got a sidebar. Love my 10. Thank you. I do think also the lighting is highlighting this 10. Okay, let's do it. Let's going to end it at 30 minutes on the nose on YouTube. Head on over to Rumble. We're going to talk now. Tiffany Dover, Justin Trudeau, and a few other things that are smaller because the Tiffany Dover, it's mind-blowing. And I should also end this by saying, for those who are new here and don't know how it works, I go to Rumble and then I post the clips or the entire stream to YouTube the day after. So if you're watching this live or today before the stream goes up, that's the way it works. Now somebody's crying. All right, ending on YouTube in 3, 2,